Okay, today I'm going to show you how to load a power injector. I'm going to give you some tips and tricks on how to do it. What we're using today is a MedRad power injector. This one right here is actually older and it's going to be portable, so you can move it around in the case. So with a MedRad injector, let's break down what it is. This is the actual injector part of it. And what happens here is there's a touch panel. With this touch panel, you'll hit enable, and this is what these arrows up and down will drive a piston inside of this, and the piston is what is going to engage with the contrast syringe, and that's what's going to control the bolus amount of contrast that comes out. So with this, you can see you've got the touch panel, and then right here, this is actually the cylinder. This is not the syringe. The syringe of contrast will go inside of it, and then we will fill it with contrast. So before I get into that, I want to show you a little quick thing right here. This right here is called a turret, and this is your piston. So if you ever get an error message saying that the turret is not engaged, what happens is the piston was unable to grab the plunger of the contrast. And I'll show you more about that. So in order for us to load the injector, we're going to open up our syringe, and this right here is a 150 ml syringe. You're going to open it in a sterile technique. So with that, what I mean by that is I'm going to grab, there's two parts to this. So I'm going to grab the syringe, and with this I can touch all over it, but when I take this sleeve off right here, that's the part that I don't want to touch. I want that to remain sterile. So in order to load this, you're going to load it from the bottom up, but there is a trick to this. If you look at the bottom, see how it's all round and then it's smooth right here? This smooth part needs to be facing you in order for you to put it inside of the cylinder. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so once I know that it's flush up against this, I'm going to need to click it into place, so then the piston will be able to engage with the plunger. So to do that, you're going to move it. You'll hear that audible click. That means everything's working. So now we know that there is air in this. The way that we know that, because all of these come without anything in them, they're completely, it's just air. See right here, you see some shapes. These are oval. That right there will tell me that there's air in them, because once I put a fluid inside of this, the shapes will turn to circles. The fluid is obviously going to be contrast. So let's go ahead, let's purge out all the air so we can suck the contrast in that. Doing that, we're going to enable it, and then we're going to bring the piston up. So go ahead and hit this. This came on, you know that it's enabled. Go ahead like that. So see how, here's the plunger, and there's the piston. So that's what's pushing everything. When you hear that audible noise, that's when you know, okay, all of the air is purged out of the system. Now we need to put contrast into the system. So to do so, we're going to use VisiPeg. When I want to take it off, go ahead and grab the plunger as well. I don't want you to touch the rim of it. You want this to remain sterile, everything inside of that. Set it down. So you have a straw. This is what comes with the contrast syringe. I want you to grab the arch of it. Try not to touch anything else. So just grab the arch of the straw, like so. And then this is where you're going to grab like that, place it. I'm going to take the sleeve off. I'm going to set it down, that back to the arch. So this is where I place the straw onto the syringe, and now I'm going to suck out the contrast into this syringe. I want you to do that in a slow manner. You do not want to have micro bubbles happening. You don't want this to look like champagne. That's not good. So go ahead, hit enable, and then I'm going to go just down just as slow as possible without causing any air bubbles. So that's a pretty good rate right there to keep. So notice that it's crystal clear, you're not seeing any bubbles. That's what you want. Okay, so that's pretty good right there. Just gonna give it a little tap so any other contrast can come out. Now once this is done, I'll leave it over here. I do not want to introduce that back into the patient because we don't know if it's kept sterile. So look at the shapes. It's kind of hard to see, but now you can see how it's more of a circular shape rather than an oval. So you know that there is not air in this. There's actually some type of liquid. So now we are ready to go ahead and get this ready. With that, I want you to put the warming cuff. So this is a warming cuff and it just clicks onto the syringe. This is what's going to warm the contrast so you don't introduce it into the patient cold. This is what helps with the viscosity of it. It's going to decrease viscosity. So now, with that said, there is some air in this, so we need to purge out a little of that air. To do that, I actually don't want to touch and use this touch panel. There is another thing that we can do, which I didn't talk about. This is the injector, this is the injector head. So with that, I can just slowly rotate up. You'll see the number is going down. That's making the plunger actually go because we're manually doing this. So that's gonna make the plunger push out any of this air. So you can kind of see that we've got a little bit of air going. So there's still a little bit more. Right, you'll be able to see it right there. So that air, and then here's your contrast. So you wanna go all the way to the tip. Perfect. So then that's ready to go. Now we need to arm the injector. And in order to do that, we're gonna go to the touch panel right here. This is where you set the parameters of what you want the injection to be. So I want you to focus on rise and fall, flow rate, volume, and pressure, known as PSI. These things are what control the catheter. Well, it actually controls the bolus amount of contrast that will go in, and it also controls how much the catheter is going to whip around. You don't want the catheter to be whipping around in the vessel. That's not good. So when you hear the physician say two numbers to you, the first number is going to be the flow rate, and the second number will be the volume. So the volume, remember, is how much contrast goes into the patient. So for instance, we'll do an IVC gram, and that will be 15 for 30. 15 is going to be the time, because rate is time. It's going to be in seconds. And then this is going to be the volume. So we need to change that. Go ahead and hit that. So we want to tell the volume, so it was going to be 30. There we go. So here's 30, and then we want to set it. Set it. Okay, so now we've got that. It's correct. Our PSI is good. And then we're going to go ahead and arm it. And arming that, you're just going to hit that. And we'll get into a little bit more detail about what arming and how to flush the line in the next video.